Oh no. Wasn't recording that whole time. That's alright, yeah, it was just finishing off that last one. The notes are still there, people can see the notes anyway. Okay. Let's roll, guys. So, gents, we've got to go on to the next one, so we'll come back to that if we have time at the end, but we really got to get this one down today. So, obviously we talked about using factorizing for monic equations. We are now going to look at what to do if it's non-monic. So we've done it previously where we've factorized out the number in front of the x squared. But if you can't do that, you're going to have to use the quadratic formula. This is something, I've got some bad news, you're just going to have to remember. It's not on your formula book, you're just going to have to remember it. Once you've done it 4 or 5 times, trust me, you're going to wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this formula. You will have no trouble remembering it. I haven't looked at this for like a year, and I can tell you I remember it. Negative b. No, well, I haven't taught methods since, I haven't taught year 11 methods at least since 2020. So I haven't done this in forever, and I can remember the quadratic formula. Trust me, after you've done it a couple of times, you will remember it. So, if we can get our quadratic into looking like this, exact same as we did for factorizing, 0 equals, and then my quadratic, what you can actually do is take these values, the a, the b, and the c, and chuck them into this formula, and it is going to spit out your answer for you. You don't need to factorize, you don't need to do anything else, you just need to solve that equation. Okay. By the way, if you are really interested in this kind of thing, personally doesn't do it for me, but if you really want to see how this formula comes about, you can see directly how they created it, and there's a proof on page 111 of your textbook. But I won't go through that in class, it doesn't really help you understand it. I don't know. It's not like they figured it out in the last 10 years or anything. Like, I learned this when I was in school, so it's probably somewhere between 50 and 300 years old. Okay. So, if I want to use quadratic formula to find the equation, find the x-intercepts using the quadratic formula, I need to get it into the right form. Is that equation, as we look at it, in the right form? No, it's got to be 0 equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. So I'm going to get rid of this 4. And that gives me on the left-hand side 0. X squared plus 3x minus 4.
Wait, yeah. Can you just explain?
So, what is my a value? 1. What is my b value?
3.
And my c value? -4. Now, by the way, guys, this is a monic quadratic. Could we factorize that? If you factorized it, what do you think would be the answer? We know that it'd be x plus u, x plus v, and we know they multiply to a negative, add to a positive. So if 2 numbers multiply to a negative, you know one of them's negative. They add to a positive, you know the positive number is bigger. And we know that u plus v equals 3. U times v equals -4. The only combination that would work would be -1 and 4.
So simple.
So that would give us x minus 1, x plus 4, which means x equals +1 or -4 as our answers. No. We're going to have to we're doing this as a simple one, just so we can see what the answer should be, and now we're going to do it using quadratic formula. So, my quadratic formula, guys, according to it, my x value is going to be equal to -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a.
So that's the
quadratic formula.
That's
Simple, easy to remember, and that's it. B is 3, so negative b is negative 3. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, 3 squared, minus. It's both. Remember, because you can have up to 2 answers, so you've got to do it twice. Once you do it when you plus, once you do it when you take. 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 3. Sorry, c is negative 4. All over 2 times a, which is 1. Okay. Negative 3, can't do anything to that yet. Plus or minus, square root of. What's 3 squared?
9. 16.
So, even if you're like doing plus, you leave the minus there.
We will do plus and minus to get our possible answers. No, separately. So first you do it where you plus it, then you do it where you take it, and it'll give you both the answers. I'm leaving both there. That symbol means you have to do both. Have you guys never seen plus or minus? Okay, this symbol here, let me just scroll up. This symbol here means do both. We have to both plus it and we have to minus it away. Alyssa. Yep. So it's take 4 times A times C. It will end up being a positive overall, you are correct. But it's take, so this is that's A and that's C. So it's take 4 times whatever that number is times whatever that number is. You are right, it will end up being a positive. It'll end up being plus 16. But yeah. So guys, we got up to the 9. So 3 squared is 9. Take 4 times 1. What's 4 times 1? Times negative 4.
16.
Negative 16. But we're taking it away. What happens when you take away negative 16? Plus. So it becomes plus 16. Over 2 times 1 is 2. What's 9 plus 16? 25. What's the square root of 25? Is that the only answer?
Square 5.
So this is where your maths teachers, me included, we simplify stuff in junior school to make it easier to understand, mostly for the kids that struggle with maths a bit more. And we've always told you that like the square root of 25 is 5. But that's not the full truth. Because there's actually 2 numbers that are possible. Because if I times 5 by 5, that gives you 25, right? Is there another number I can times by itself to give you 25? 25 times 25 is 525. Negative 5, that's right. Because negative 5 times negative 5, negatives cancel out, gives you positive 25. So, yeah, every square root has 2 possible outcomes. So guys, that is why we have this plus minus symbol. Because when we do the square root, we can either do the positive version of the square root or the negative version. And every square root will have a positive or a negative version. Sky, you look like I've just slapped you. So for example, what are the square roots of 100? What number times by itself can make 100? Positive 10? or negative 10? What about 36?
6.
6 and negative 6. What about 1? What are the square roots of 1? And negative 1. Every square root has both the positive and the negative version. In year 8, 9, and 10, I don't know what you guys did in year 10 actually, because you probably were in the extended class. But in year 8, 9, and 10, whenever your teacher has done a question on the board and it's had a square root, they've probably said to you, oh, the square root of 25 is 5. And they haven't gone on to say, well, there's actually more to that story. Because in year 8, 9, and 10, you don't need to know that.
Same answer, isn't it? It's good idea.
Well, or it's negative.
Okay.
It does. Like, the answer of 5 is still correct. Like, it's not wrong. You just don't have the full picture.
But 5 something 5.
Yes.
Same answer.
But if I said to you, like, I don't know, solve this problem that had a square root in it and tell me how many, like, I don't know, kilos of this I need, and you said, well, the answer's 5, you're not accounting to the fact that there's a second answer that also works. Now, a lot of the time we're going to get, like when we start looking at, so if you're in physics, they start doing projectile motion a lot, right, guys? And they're going to get something like this, where they draw a quadratic that looks like this, and they need to figure out, based on the quadratic, how far along the projectile hit the ground. But if you look at the quadratic, there's 2 possible answers of where it hit the ground. The positive one or the negative one. Now, in physics, you might say, well, I'm going to find the positive one and I'm not going to worry about the negative, because you can't have a negative distance when you shoot something, because it's gone a certain distance away. But in maths, we're a bit less attached to reality some of the time. So we can have negative answers. Okay, you have to do both. Okay, I'm about to show you why right now. So guys, eyes up on the screen for me, please. We've got square root of 25, and we've just discussed at length that is both positive 5 and negative 5 are our options. The reason we have this plus and minus symbol is it shows both possibilities. So now all I need to say is plus or minus 5. Because can you see that accounts for the positive 5 answer, and it accounts for the negative 5 answer. So it's accounting for all the possibilities. 9 plus 16 is 25. The square root of 25 is positive 5 or negative 5? Jesse? Yeah, you're doing the same thing, just in the opposite direction, yeah. I just haven't got to that step yet. We're taking like 5 minutes to get through this one. On the bottom of the fraction, guys, it's still 2. So, I have my first option. Do we want to do the plus first or the minus first? Plus. So I'm going to do a little arrow down here for the plus, and I'm going to do a little arrow down here for the minus. So my first case is that x equals negative 3 plus 5 over 2. My other case is x equals Desmos, apparently. That was odd. Sorry about that. The other case is x equals negative 3 minus 5 over 2. Okay, what's negative 3 plus 5? 2. And what's 2 divided by 2? 1. So my first answer is x equals 1. Sky. The squared. 5 squared. Oh, that's not squared. That's a divide by 2 on the line above.
Okay.
That's a big bruh moment. Okay. If you're struggling at the moment, guys, I just want you to know that is fine. And every other class I've ever shown this has had the same like deer in the headlights look as they've tried to figure this stuff out. So let me just be clear. Once I'll separate out my lines. So, get rid of which? There's no squared. There's no squared. Oh, okay. There's like 3 different people asking me 5 different things at the moment, guys. Let me just take a moment, take a breath, put your pen down for a second. I'll just walk you through what we've done so far. We've started with our equation. 4 equals x squared plus 3x. I've gotten it into the form that we want. 0 equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So 0 equals x squared plus 3x plus negative 4. Or minus 4, as it were. From there, I've just identified my a value, my b value, and my c value. And I've written them down. All I've done from there is take my a, b, and c values and put them into the quadratic formula. Now I'm going to say it without looking, and hopefully I don't get it wrong. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Alyssa, see if you can do it without looking. That's the dumbest thing I've ever done. I went to cover it on my screen so you couldn't see. Yep. B's right. Yep. Minus. Yep. Over 2a. You got it. Okay, so we've got our quadratic formula. On the next line, I've just subbed in all my a, b's, and c's from my rule. From there, I've just solved the things I can. 3 squared is 9. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 4 is positive 16. So I end up with negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 plus 16 over 2. Oh yeah, because 2 times 1 is 2. So that gives me that fraction. Between this step and this step, the only thing I've done is resolve that square root. 9 plus 16 is 25, and the square root of 25 is either positive 5 or negative 5. In maths, because we're lazy, we like to write, instead of writing 2 separate answers, if they're just opposite, we just say plus or minus 5, which is where we get to this step here. My x value is equal to negative 3 plus or minus 5 divided by 2. Right.
This is
because I solved it.
Oh, that's right.
So then we get to here. We found that the first answer is x equals 1. The second answer, ladies and gents, negative 3 minus 5, negative 8. Divide that by 2, negative 4. So therefore, x equals 1 or negative 4. Does that track with what we solved using factorizing?
Wrong.
A lot of people feel that same way. Exactly. That is... Okay. I'm going to move off here. Does anyone reckon they can, without looking at their book, rattle off the formula? Tyson, want to give it a go?
B, A,
B, it's not just by itself.
B squared,
B squared.
AC
Yeah, you missed
plus.
You missed a minus and a number. There's 2 numbers. You know it? Clarice, rattle it off for me. Negative b.
Take AC 2A.
Excellent, good work. This is actually really important, guys. The reason the quadratic formula is important, as we saw, because of that plus minus, it gives us two possible answers. But not every quadratic formula will give you two answers, because remember, not every quadratic crosses the x-axis, and not every quadratic crosses it twice. Some of them don't cross it at all, some of them only cross once. Okay? We're going to use the discriminant. So the discriminant, guys, if you look up at my quadratic formula here, the bit inside the square root is what we call the discriminant. That's what we call the discriminant. Because it discriminates whether you get one answer, two answers, or you can't solve it. There's no answers. So without having to go through the whole quadratic formula, you can quickly look at the discriminant and it'll tell you how many answers you're going to get. Okay? Well, if we scroll on down to the next page where it says understanding the discriminant, it works this way. If b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, there's two answers. If it's bigger than 0, there's two answers. If it equals 0, one answer. And if it's less than 0, there's no answer. There's no intercepts. Because you put the numbers in and solve it. I'm not doing any tricks here. We just got to actually solve the numbers. Does anyone know why that would work that way?
Because 0 is like ascending at 0.
What's the square root of 0? How many answers could there possibly be to the square root of 0? Only one. Because remember, each of these we then square root. If we have the square root of a positive number, how many answers will there be? Sorry? So, like, if I square rooted 100, how many answers are there? 2. If I square rooted 64, how many answers are there? 2. If I square root 7, how many answers are there? 2. How come there's no answers if I try and square root a negative? It is actually impossible to square root a negative number. The reason why is there any way you can multiply the same number together twice and end up as a negative as your answer? Because if you multiplied a positive number and a positive number, what's your answer going to be? And if you multiply a negative by a negative, what's your answer going to be? Positive. So there's no way to multiply the same number together twice and get a negative. So that is why if your number is less than 0, there's no intercepts. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't solve it from there. I'd say no intercepts and I'd move on with my life. Okay, guys. Let's find how many intercepts are in these parabolas. So let's do the first one. What's my A? My B and my C. Yep. -9 and 2. So I want to do b squared minus 4ac. B squared would be -9 squared minus 4 times 5 times 2. -9 squared is 81 minus 4 times 5 is 20 times 2 is 40. 81 minus 40. I'm not even going to bother solving it at this point because we don't need to for this question. Is my answer going to be positive, 0, or negative? Positive. How many answers? 2. Okay. I think you might not be the only person with that question, Ryan. So I'll just say this again. I'm not solving at the moment the entire quadratic formula. All I'm doing is using the discriminant to figure out how many answers there will be. Because if you can do this step, and like Clary said, what if you find there's no answers? Do you just stop? The answer is yes. Because there's no point doing that whole long process if there's no answer. So you look at the discriminant first, and if there's an answer, then yeah, you go and solve it. But if there's no answer, you don't need to worry about everything else. So this one, I suppose I should put the answer in. The answer would be 41, which is positive. So there are 2 x-intercepts. I cannot wait for my teacher desk to arrive so I can actually stand up while I'm doing this. I feel so silly, like sitting down in front of the class.
Yep.
Both rooms, I probably won't worry about next door because I'm only in there 1 lesson a week. Well, I'm in here 6 lessons a week, actually, because I've got another class in here.
Right.
H. Classroom. Ooh. I'm a big fan of C5. That's just because in my first year here, I taught every single lesson in C5.
Right.
I agree. Okay, questions, comments, concerns. So plus V positive. So because it's positive, there's 2 answers. So if your discriminant is positive, there's 2 answers. If it's 0, there's 1 answer. If it's negative, there's no answers.
So plus V. What do you call it?
So guys, just for those of you that didn't hear me last time I said this or are struggling to follow on, if I ever do an arrow, the arrow, sometimes some teachers do it like 3 dots like that. Some people do an arrow, means therefore. So I said therefore, the answer is positive. If my answer is positive, there's 2 x-intercepts. So therefore positive, so there are 2 x-intercepts. That's all that means. Yes. And this will be a recurring thing, guys. I do more working out when I'm doing these notes than I expect you guys to do, because I am not doing the working out to show my working out. I am doing the working out to show you my thinking. And showing you my thinking is important because this stuff is hard, and I want you to have as much information as you go so you can make your own jumps from step to step. Yes.
If you only have 1 answer, do you just matter against plus ones?
Well, the time you have 1 answer is when your answer is 0. Does it matter whether you plus or minus 0? Okay. Let's do the next one, guys.
See if we can do that and then come back. Yeah.
Sure. Have a go at B, and for some reason it reset to A down there, but we all know it's supposed to be a C.
Yeah.
1. Because if it's not there, the answer would be 0. If it is there, it would be, or whatever numbers in front. Does anyone like a handle to get me to check what they've done?
Oh, yeah.
Minus negative 2, so yeah. Actually negative 2. Okay.
This isn't a question I give, but this is a question to help you understand when doing it on a question to get on. So, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got here.
Yeah. You can negative 0. Yeah. So, negative 23.
It should be negative. I think Kurt got a slightly different number though.
Negative 24.
Yeah.
Negative 4 times 3 plus 8. Plus 8 minus 2 is 16. That's right. Okay, hold up. So, negative 4 times 3 with graphic or something. Negative 4 times 3 is 10 graphic.
Yeah, it should be negative 23.
I was about to say. Hang on. No, like actually. I guess. Nice. Anyway, I looked at the last number. So that's making so
23 is correct.
yeah, negative.
Wait, how'd you get negative?
Well, where do I find? Well, I mean, it took like 3 seconds. What do you say? Sorry. I say it's not like very well. Imagine if we just sat 6, right? That big. That's 1 minute. Where everyone's having to do this.
Yo.
So,